So, this is my oral presentation on my interview with an older adult. I chose my mother's neighbor, Fran O'Hare. Fran was born in Brooklyn in 1943. Both of her parents are Italian immigrants. They were both born in Italy as well as her oldest brother. Her father came to America to work, and her mother and oldest brother came to join him 10 years after the fact. Fran's earliest memories are of her sharing a very small apartment, a two-bedroom apartment, with her family. She used to sleep in bed with her parents, and her brothers shared the separate room. There's a 10-year age gap between each of the children in her family. She was the baby, and she often said that it felt like she had three fathers and that everybody in the household was loving and kind, and she has really no memories of any kind of anger or violence or fighting or anything of that nature. I chose for this project Erikson's Stage 8, Integrity vs. Despair. And this is all about older age, older adulthood, and the main psychosocial crisis of this particular stage is the matter of reflecting back on one's own life and taking an inventory of all the things that have come to pass, looking back on accomplishments and achievements and failures, and coming to terms with these things. If a person is able to look back on their life and feel as though they succeeded more than they failed, they are met with a sense of peace and acceptance. Whereas if somebody looks back on their life and only sees their failures or feels that they were unable to accomplish the things that they want to, often they are met with regret and mourning for the opportunities that they missed out on. This life stage development, or this developmental this developmental life stage, is a little bit different than all of the previous ones because it is actually a accumulation of all of the previous life stages. So for my participant Fran, there weren't too many specific events, so to speak, that really came into play with this life cycle stage. It's more of the experience of being this age, because as Erikson considered, it's the last of the stages before our death. But with like all life stages, there's a positive of expectations, challenges, achievements, goals, and desires. Fran did say that, some of the big things that for her during this time was her retirement, becoming a grandparent, having the time to travel now freely, as well as a time to reflect back on everything that's happened to her. But, with the freedom that she's finding in retirement, there's also other aspects that are not so great and things that society is pressing against her. In regards to her autonomy, there's a lot of concern there. She has 3 children and a bunch of grandchildren who she loves more than anything, but most of them live in California while she still lives here in New York. So that does make things quite difficult. It's very hard for the whole family to be together for holidays and other special events, although she does try to get out there as often as possible. Her husband is dealing with currently some health problems, making him unable to really travel, so she's going by herself, which can be scary and lonesome, especially when you want your life partner, to be there with you during these things. Fran also expressed that her youngest daughter is currently living in New Jersey, and she worries that her daughter is staying on the East Coast specifically for Fran and her husband John. And that is a bag of mixed feelings for Fran, because she loves her daughter and she's happy that she's so much closer, but she does not ever want to feel like a burden to anyone, especially her children. So this is significant because as she gets older, she finds that there is an expectation of uh, others thinking that, she's not really able to take care of herself, that she's not able to do the things that she once was. Fran does not feel this way at all. She is nearing 80. She does not feel like she's 80. She does not act like she's 80. She is very high spirited and just this very adventurous individual who has no interest in being an old person. So Fran lived in that tiny two-bedroom apartment in Brooklyn with her family until she was about 12. Her family had saved up enough money to buy a plot of land in West Babylon, New York, on Long Island, and built their own house. And she spoke about the memories of just enamorment with seeing this new home, of having her own bedroom, and then the experiences of getting used to suburban life as versus a more urban life, and the challenges that her family had faced. Her father, for as long as she could remember, had been disabled from a work accident and was unable to extend his left arm fully, so her mother and her brothers worked. And then as each of them got older, each of the children got older, they took their turn taking care of the parents. There was a 15-year difference in the ages of her mother and her father because of the arranged marriage. So her father had already been much older when she was a child, and and because of the age difference between her and her brothers, she did not have as many responsibilities to take care of them, but growing up, they were such a loving and close family that each of them felt not necessarily obligated, but privileged to take that time to love and take care of each other. When Fran graduated from high school, she did go to New Paltz for education. Right after or during that time, she was student teaching in Schenectady, New York. They offered her a full-time job, but she actually turned it down to move back to Long Island and get an elementary school teaching job there, so that she can move back in with her parents and take care of them. And when I had asked her about that, she had no regrets. She felt no resentment. They in no way forced her to move back and do that. She wanted to. She wanted to be there for them because she felt that they had always been there for her. So even though she had a very stable job as a school teacher, she realized a couple of years in that as much as she loved it, it was not where she felt she needed to be to grow as a person. So she took a very big risk and quit that job and ended up taking a job in Manhattan at the National Trust Bank, or Bank Trust. And shortly within a few years of working this new job, she met her husband, who worked for a company that her company had merged with. And before she knew it, they had fallen in love and got married by the time that she was 28. Soon after, she got pregnant with her first child and then had her second and third child within about 3 years of each other. Once she started her family, she stopped working and her husband worked full-time. She became a full-time stay-at-home mom, which she said was the most satisfying job that she ever had. While her youngest was finishing up high school, she did start working part-time at the library and was one of the first founding members of a group that would go to the libraries and read to infants and small children. and basically became a pioneer in this program on Long Island, going to different libraries and setting up programs to do this. She did not want, they offered her a full-time position, which she declined because she wanted to stay at home to give her youngest child the same kind of undivided attention that her other two had had. When the last of them did eventually go away to school, she did go back to the library full time, and then at that point, the library offered to pay for her furthering her education, and she got a master's in library sciences. And that's what she continued to do until her retirement. Now that Fran and her husband are both retired, they, or at least Fran, is very excited to travel. She feels like there is nothing but excitement and hope for the future. She doesn't see this as being put out to pasture, but rather the opportunity to do everything that she didn't even know that she wanted to do during her life, especially now that all of her children are grown and have families of their own. Her main goal growing up was she knew that she wanted to be a mom. And now that she's a mom, and now that she has all of this time returned to her, she has no interest in settling down and letting her life pass her by. She's so vibrantly looking forward to the next steps in her life. I asked Fran during our interview quite a bit of times how, any events or any particular things came into conflict with her accomplishing what she wanted to, like being a woman or being the child of immigrants or, economic hardships. And she essentially gave me a resounding no with each time I asked her that question. And the same for when I asked her if she felt, the pressure of women that most women face at her age because of this country's hard focus on the importance of youth and beauty. And she said, people might, but I don't really notice because that doesn't matter to me. So in the scholarly articles that I reviewed for this project, there were 4 key factors that kept coming up. And the first one that I think really is the umbrella for the other 3 is determining what wellness means for older adults. And many narratives in regards to wellness have to do with younger individuals, and the narrative for wellness for older adults is always about their biomedical, their physiological being, and nothing really to do about their personhood or their feelings. They are kind of treated like, oh, your body's starting to fail, now that's the only thing that matters about you, rather than, what does it mean to start seeing your friends around your age start to pass away, and what does it mean for your children to be fully grown and to have their own children? How does it affect you mentally to be expected to be infirm, or to not be trusted anymore, to be infantilized once again, after you've had all of these experiences across your entire life. And, so the article that I chose was research done in proposing what kind of framework would work to determine what wellness is in later life. And I thought it was very interesting because Fullen, the author of this article, basically... Hold on one second, my cats are destroying things. Ultimately, Fran uh, is fearless in the sense that throughout her entire life, she felt that there was nothing that was going to stop her from living the life that she wanted to. You know, going from being a very stable school teacher to taking a huge risk and working in Manhattan just so that she could create a more vibrant life for herself, a more interesting life. When she started working at the trust in Manhattan, she was one of the few women who wore pants because like that wasn't a thing yet. She did not let anything stop her, and she had expressed that. I asked, "Is this a common experience with your peers of your age?" And she said, "No. There were many, many women who sacrificed themselves and what they wanted for, the obtainment of a husband or a family or, you know, whatever that might be. The fact that she didn't get married until she was 28 during that time period is also very significant because so many people got married in their early 20s, and she wasn't interested in that. She wanted to live her own way, and she always did. And because she did what she wanted to do and refused to let, you know, the influences and external factors pressure her into being someone that she's not, she is able to look back on her life with a sense of gratitude, with a sense of peace and accomplishment. So even though this is the last stage in Erikson's theory, she just doesn't necessarily mean it's the last stage of a person's life. She has accomplished the psychosocial achievement of integrity. That's not in question for her. The only question that she has is what's next. And not in a, oh no, I'm dreading infirmity, the inability to be an agent in her own life, but rather she has already said, nope, I don't want to be taken care of. My husband would never try to stop me from doing the things that I want to do, even if he doesn't want to do it. She said that once she becomes a widow, she knows that she wants to have a sexy younger male nurse taking care of her. She is an unstoppable force. Granted, there were a lot of things that gave her the upper hand to do that, and one of those things is the loving and supportive family she had her whole life, and then the love and support of her partner, her husband, and then the love and adoration that she has with her children. They're all very, very close, even though they live across the country. She was actually just visiting her son right before we did this interview. And then to add on top of that, she did also have the privilege of being white passing, even though, during that time, Italian immigrants were not necessarily welcomed or treated kindly, or even just being a woman during a time when women really weren't allowed to be much of anything other than wives and mothers. She was a wife and a mother, but it was not because that's what she was supposed to do. It's because it was what she wanted. And because she did what she wanted, she has nothing to look back on. And because she did what she wanted, she has nothing to look back on with regret. There were no decisions she felt that she wished that she didn't do. There were no opportunities that she wanted that she didn't take. And now that she is in this stage of her life, again, she is only looking hopefully to the future and grateful, constantly saying how grateful she was and how lucky she was to have made it this far and had such a beautiful life, being able to say that she has no regrets.